The recycled air of Meridian 7 always carried the metallic taste of filtered oxygen. But Marcus Webb had learned to mask it with the rich aroma of genuine earth coffee. His small cafe tucked between a spare parts dealer and a protein synthesizer. Shop stood as an unlikely oasis in the Frontier Station's commercial district. The grounds, as locals called it, wasn't much to look at. 12 tables, one ancient espresso machine he'd rebuilt 3 times, one walls covered with faded photographs from Earth. But it was his, earned with every credit saved from 15 years of military service. Marcus worked the morning rush with practiced efficiency. His prosthetic left hand a souvenir from the Titan uprising, moving as smoothly as his flesh won. The regulars knew their orders would be ready before they reached the counter. He took pride in that predictability, that order. After years of chaos in the engineering cores, routine felt like freedom. The station's artificial day cycle had just shifted to afternoon when she appeared. Marcus noticed her immediately, not because she stood out, though she did, but because of how she moved. Careful, calculated, like someone mapping escape routes. Her hood covered most of her features, but he caught glimpses of silvery skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh station lights. Cluvian, definitely, though their kind rarely ventured to human stations anymore. Not since the trade disputes started 5 months ago. She approached the counter when the cafe emptied, water dripping from her cloak. The station's climate control must have malfunctioned again in Sector 12. She placed her hands flat on the worn metal surface, and Marcus saw them tremble despite her controlled posture. "Coffee," she said, her voice carrying the melodic undertone all Coluvians had, like wind through crystal. Black, strong. Marcus poured without comment, noting how her golden eyes tracked every movement. When he set the cup down, she wrapped both hands around it, absorbing the warmth. She didn't drink immediately, just stood there, seeming to weigh something heavy in her mind. "I can work," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out with desperate precision. "I know 17 beverage preparation techniques from 12 different worlds. I can calculate currency exchanges in real time, speak 43 languages fluently." She paused, her voice dropping. "I need somewhere safe to stay, even just for a few days." Marcus had heard similar pitches before. The frontier attracted the desperate, the running, the lost. But something in her tone, the way she held herself like a coiled spring, made him pause. His instincts, honed through years of reading situations that could turn deadly in seconds, whispered that this was different. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Saphira." No surname, no origin claim, it's just the one word. Offered. Like a test. Marcus studied her for a long moment.
How?
The smart move would be to say no. Hiring an undocumented Coluvian during tense diplomatic times could bring scrutiny he didn't need. But he'd made a career out of calculated risks. Something about her reminded him of soldiers he'd known. The ones carrying weight that would crush them if they stopped moving. "Kitchen needs cleaning," he said finally. "Storage room has a cot. Minimum station wage, but you eat free. Trial period, 1 week." Relief flickered across her features so quickly he almost missed it. She straightened, nodding once. "When do I start?" "Now." Aprons in the back. As she moved past him toward the kitchen, he caught her scento zone and something floral, distinctly alien. She paused at the doorway, looking back. "Why?" she asked simply. Marcus shrugged, already turning back to the espresso machine. Everyone deserves a chance to stop running. She disappeared into the kitchen without another word, but he felt the weight of her gaze lingering. Marcus had no idea that his simple act of kindness had just placed his cafe at the center of a conflict that would determine the fate of human-Coluvian relations. All he knew was that his quiet routine had just become infinitely more complicated. The afternoon passed with unusual quiet. Saphira worked methodically, learning the equipment locations, memorizing the menu Marcus had scrawled on a battered tablet. She moved like someone who'd been trained for efficiency, never wasting motion. Military, maybe, or something close to it. Marcus filed that observation away with all the other questions he wasn't asking yet. When the evening crowd thinned, and they closed the shutters, She finally sat across from him in the dim light of the closed cafe. Her hood was down now, revealing angular features and hair that seemed to shift between silver and pale blue. Depending on the angle, the bounty hunters will come, she said quietly, matter of fact. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in 3 days. I'm worth enough credits to make it worthwhile. Marcus leaned back, crossing his arms. His prosthetic clicked softly as the joints adjusted. What did you do? I existed in the wrong place with the wrong knowledge. She met his eyes directly. I was a diplomatic translator at the Coluvian embassy on Titan. I translated something I wasn't supposed to understand. Now both sides want me silent. The weight of her admission settled between them. Marcus had seen enough classified operations to recognize the truth when he heard it. The morning arrived with the usual hum of station systems cycling through their daily reset. But Marcus felt the change in atmosphere immediately. 3 customers canceled their regular orders through messages, and the foot traffic past the grounds moved quicker than usual. Word traveled fast on Meridian 7, and having a Coluvian working in a human establishment was already stirring whispers. Zafira emerged from the storage room, looking more rested than she had any right to after sleeping on that ancient cot. She'd somehow altered her station-issued work clothes to fit better, and the way she tied her hair back revealed more of her alien features, high cheekbones that caught light like polished metal, and those distinctive golden eyes that seemed to process everything in layers. Trouble's coming, she said simply, reading the same signs Marcus had noticed. Always is, he replied, handing her a fresh apron. Question is, what kind and when? The answer came during the lunch rush. Commander Thorne pushed through the crowd, his security uniform pristine despite the station's tendency toward casual dress. Marcus had dealt with him before, a by-the-book officer who saw the universe in terms of regulations and violations. His presence in the cafe meant someone had already filed a complaint. Webb Thorne nodded curtly, his eyes scanning until they found Zafira behind the counter. Need to discuss your new employee? Privately? Marcus continued, pulling shots for waiting customers. I'm working. You want coffee or conversation? Both. Thorne's jaw tightened. Right. This is courtesy, Marcus. Don't make me make it official. They sat at the corner table while Zafira handled the counter with surprising competence. She moved between orders smoothly, even managing small talk with the braver customers who didn't immediately shy away from her presence. She's undocumented. Thorne began without preamble. No entry visa, no work permit, no biological scan on file. You know the penalties for harboring illegals. I know she makes better coffee than me already, Marcus countered. And I know you've got bigger problems than one refugee trying to earn honest credits. Thorne leaned forward, lowering his voice. There's chatter on the diplomatic channels. The Coluvians lost someone important 5 days ago, someone carrying sensitive information. They're offering 300,000 credits for her return. Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his prosthetic hand tightened imperceptibly on his cup. That's a lot of money, enough to make even honest people reconsider. Thorne studied him carefully. I'm not here to threaten you, Marcus. We served together, even if it was different units. Today? But there's a Coluvian hunter ship that just requested docking permission. They'll be here in 6 hours. The commander stood, leaving his coffee untouched. Whatever she told you, whatever sob story she spun, it's not worth your life or your business. Turn her over before they arrive. That's my advice as a friend. After Thorne left, Marcus found Zafira in the kitchen, her hands steady as she cleaned. Equipment, but her shoulders tense. You heard? She nodded, enhanced auditory range useful for translation work. She turned to face him. He's right. You should turn me in. The bounty would set you up for life. I've had enough blood money for one lifetime, Marcus said, his tone carrying edges she hadn't heard before. Besides, you still haven't told me what you really know that's worth 300,000 credits. Zafira moved to the kitchens. Small window, gazing out at the market corridor. The attack on the mining station at Kepler 442. 47 humans dead. Your government blamed Coluvian extremists. My people denied involvement. It nearly started a war, I remember. Lost friends there. She turned back to him, her golden eyes intense. I translated the classified communications. The attack wasn't Coluvian extremists. It was a joint operation, corrupt officials from both sides working together. They needed an incident to justify military contracts worth billions. The dead were just ... acceptable losses. Marcus felt his prosthetic hand clench involuntarily, the servos whining slightly. The Kepler attack had been the reason he'd finally left the service, disgusted by the endless cycle of retaliation it sparked. To learn, it had all been orchestrated. If proof, she tapped her temple. Eidetic memory, enhanced by Coluvian neurology. Every document, every conversation, every encrypted file, it's all here. But memory testimony isn't legally admissible without corroboration. That's why they need me dead, not just discredited. The afternoon passed in tense preparation. Marcus felt himself slipping back into military mode, cataloging resources, analyzing defensive positions, calculating odds. The cafe had 3 exits: main entrance, kitchen service door, and an old maintenance hatch he'd never bothered to seal. The espresso machine could be rigged to explode with enough steam pressure. The industrial freezer door was thick enough to stop small arms fire. He was examining the maintenance hatch when Zafira found him, carrying 2 cups of what smelled like Coluvian tea, something she'd improvised from earth ingredients. "You're planning to fight," she observed, not quite making it a question. "I'm planning to survive. Both of us." He accepted the tea, noting how she'd naturally sweetened it to match his preferences. "You pick things up quick." Survival trait. She sat beside him on the floor, her proximity raising the temperature noticeably. Coluvians ran warmer than humans, something about their homeworld's binary suns. "Marcus, why did you really leave the military?" He was quiet for a long moment, sipping the alien tea that somehow tasted like home. "Got tired of following orders that got good people killed for bad reasons. Figured running a coffee shop would be simpler." He gave her a rueful smile. "Much for that plan. I'm sorry I brought this to your door." "I'm not." The admission surprised them both. Marcus set down his cup, turning to face her fully. "First interesting thing to happen since I opened this place. And if what you're saying is true, maybe we can stop them from doing it again." She studied his face, then leaned closer. "You realize if we survive this, everything changes. The conspiracy goes deeper than just Kepler. Both governments have factions that profit from keeping our species at each other's throats. Then maybe it's time someone served them something bitter to swallow." The Coluvian hunter ship docked at exactly 1900 hours, station time. Marcus watched through the security feeds he'd hacked years ago, little insurance he'd never told anyone about. The ship was sleek, predatory, nothing like the bulky human freight carriers that usually occupied Bay 12. From it emerged a single figure, moving with the controlled grace of someone who killed professionally. Nexus stood 7 feet tall, even by Coluvian standards that was imposing. His skin had the darker silver tone that marked him as from the warrior caste. And his equipment was military grade, the kind that wasn't supposed to exist outside special forces units. Marcus had faced his type before on battlefields where the Geneva Convention was just a suggestion. "He's early," Zafira observed, watching the same feed from behind Marcus's shoulder. "Nexus always gives his targets time to sweat before he moves. It's his signature. You know him? He was embassy security before he went private. We worked in the same building for 2 years." Her voice carried something that might have been regret. "He was different then, believed in the peace process." "What changed?" "His family died in a human colonial raid. Except it wasn't really humans. Same false flag operation as Kepler, just the other side. The conspirators play both sides against each other." Marcus stood, checking his preparations. One more time. He'd sent his regular customers messages that the grounds would be closed for maintenance for the next few days. Most would understand the subtext when a veteran suddenly closed shop on a frontier station. It meant trouble was brewing. What he hadn't expected was Ambassador Reeves walking through his front door an hour before closing, flanked by 2 diplomatic security guards who were clearly more than they appeared. Reeves was everything Marcus despised about civilian leaderships: soft, privileged, and carrying that particular arrogance of someone who'd never faced real danger. "Mr. Webb," Reeves smiled, but had never reached his eyes. "I heard you've hired some interesting help. Coffee shop work is more interesting than it looks," Marcus replied evenly, noting how the guards had positioned themselves to block both exits. "I'm sure." Reeves settled into a chair uninvited. "I'm here to make you an offer, a generous one. The young lady you're harboring is involved in matters of state security. Turn her over to me and I'll ensure you're compensated far better than any bounty. We're talking a complete relocation package, new identity, enough credits to start over. Anywhere in human space, and if I refuse, then you're harboring a terrorist. The security footage from this establishment would show you knowingly aided someone who stole classified documents. That's treason during a time of diplomatic tensions." Reeves's smile widened. 20 years minimum in a maximum security facility. Do your choice. Emerged from the kitchen then, moving with deliberate calm. She set a cup of coffee in front of Reeves, with steady hands. "Ambassador, I wondered when you'd show yourself." Reeves's composure cracked slightly. "You should have stayed hidden, translator. You've caused considerable inconvenience." "Translation is about understanding meaning, not just words," she replied. "I understood perfectly when you discussed acceptable casualty numbers with your Coluvian counterpart. When you laughed about how easy it was to manipulate public fear." The guards' hands moved to their weapons, but Marcus was already in motion. His prosthetic hand grabbed the nearest guard's wrist, the mechanical strength crushing nerve clusters and forcing him to drop his pistol. The second guard found himself looking down the barrel of Marcus's service weapon. He'd kept it hidden under the counter for 3 years, hoping never to need it. "Everyone stays calm," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded in combat. "Ambassador, your men are going to place their weapons on the table." Slowly. Nice. Reeves's face had gone pale. "You're making a terrible mistake, Webb. I'm a diplomatic official. This is an act of war."
"Oh,"
Zafira said. Quietly, "War is what you've been trying to start for profit. This is just coffee shop business." The standoff might have continued indefinitely, but the front windows exploded inward in a shower of reinforced glass. Nexus entered through the breach, his weapon aimed with mechanical precision. In the chaos, Reeves and his guards scrambled. For cover, their weapons scattered. "Zafira," Nexus said, his voice surprisingly soft. "Come with me. No one else needs to die." "Like the families on Kepler didn't need to die," she responded, not flinching, despite the weapon pointed at her. "Like your family didn't need to die?" The hunter's aim wavered slightly. "Don't. They played us, Nexus. Both sides. Your family. The Kepler victims all sacrificed to keep the war machine profitable." She took a step toward him, Marcus tensing behind her. "I have the proof. Communications. Fund, transfers, everything. We can expose them. Proof doesn't bring back the dead." "No, but it can prevent more deaths." "How many more families? Nexus? How many more Keplers?" The moment stretched taut, everyone frozen in position. Marcus could see Reeves reaching slowly for one of the dropped weapons, could calculate the angles and timing needed to stop him, but his instincts told him this was Zafira's play to make. Nexus lowered his weapon an inch. "You always were too idealistic for intelligence work. And you always were too smart to be a simple killer," she countered. "Help us. Your skills, my knowledge, and Marcus's connections, we could end this." The hunter looked between them, his expression unreadable. Then Reeves made his move, grabbing for a pistol. Marcus shot him in the shoulder, a precise wound that spun him to the ground, screaming but alive. The guards froze, calculating their odds against a veteran soldier and a Coluvian hunter. "Interesting negotiation technique," Nexus observed. Something that might have been amusement in his tone. "I prefer direct communication," Marcus replied, keeping his weapon trained on the guards while assessing Nexus's intent. The hunter made his decision, holstering his weapon. "The station will be locked down within minutes. Reeves's people will claim terrorist attack. We need to move. Zafira's eyes brightened with hope. "You were right about my family. I investigated after ... after." The trail led back to the same accounts Reeves uses. Nexus looked at the wounded ambassador with cold satisfaction. I came here for answers, not just a bounty. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit from behind the counter. Old habits for military service. Storage tunnels run beneath this sector. I know a route to the old maintenance bays. As sirens began wailing across the station, the unlikely trio disappeared through the kitchen service door, leaving Reeves bleeding and his guards calling desperately for backup. The ground stood empty, coffee still steaming on abandoned tables. The spirit of rebellion brewing stronger than any espresso Marcus had ever served. The maintenance tunnels beneath Meridian 7 were a testament to human paranoia and over-engineering. Marcus had discovered them during his first year on the station, recognizing them immediately as military-grade infrastructure, disguised as civilian maintenance. Now, leading Zafira and Nexus through the darkened passages, he was grateful for whatever forgotten conflict had necessitated their construction. Station's in full lockdown, Nexus reported, monitoring security channels through his equipment. They're calling it a terrorist incident. 3 dangerous fugitives. Shoot on-site authorization. Reeves works fast, Marcus muttered, stopping at a junction to orient himself. The emergency lighting cast everything in deep red shadows, making Zafira's skin look like polished copper. He has to, she said. Every hour, we're free increases. The chance we transmit what we know. He'll mobilize everything. They emerged in Maintenance Bay 7, a graveyard of decommissioned equipment and spare parts. Marcus had used it for storage when the grounds first opened, before realizing that transport costs weren't worth it. Now it would serve a different purpose. It can't run forever, he said, surveying the space with a tactical eye. And even if we could, it wouldn't stop them. We need to transmit your evidence. Get it to someone who can't be bought. Captain, Morris and Nexus suggested unexpectedly. When they looked at him, he explained, she commands the patrol cruiser Integrity. Lost her son at Kepler. She's been pushing for a real investigation ever since. She's also 3 days out. Zafira checked her hidden datapad. We'd need to hold position and transmit continuously for the message to reach her through all the interference. Marcus was already moving, his mind shifting into the engineering mode that had kept soldiers alive through dozen campaigns. Then we make our stand here, Nexus. Those shipping containers can be arranged into defensive positions. Zafira, I need you to gut every power cell from that equipment pile. We're going to need surprises. They worked through the night, transforming the maintenance bay into a fortress. Marcus revealed skills his coffee shop customers never suspected. Rigging explosive charges from cleaning chemicals and creating electromagnetic barriers from salvaged shield generators. Nexus moved containers with his enhanced colluvian strength, creating kill zones and fallback positions with professional precision. Zafira worked on the transmission equipment, boosting its range with modifications that shouldn't have been possible with spare parts. Where did you learn that? Marcus asked, watching her splice fiber optics with her bare hands. Her fingertips glowing slightly as she used her species' natural bioelectrical field. My mother was an engineer before she became a diplomat, she replied. She said, understanding. How things connect was the same, whether it was circuits or civilizations. I don't know what passed for it on the station's artificial cycle. They were as ready as they could be. Marcus had also sent messages to a select few, the kind of people who understood loyalty earned in foxholes. Not many responded, but those who did brought supplies and information. 40 security officers massing in Sector 5, reported Chen, a former supply sergeant who now ran a noodle shop. Reeves has also hired private contractors. It means he's keeping this off official records. Good, Marcus said grimly. Means he's scared of oversight. Its first probe came at 0800, a security drone, followed by gas canisters that Nexus neutralized with targeted shots. They were testing defenses, looking for weak points. Marcus let them look, wanting them to commit before revealing his surprises. The real assault began at noon. 40 officers and a dozen contractors approaching in tactical formation. Careful. Exactly what Marcus had expected. He waited until they were in the kill zone, then triggered the first surprise overloaded power cells that erupted in blinding flashes. Temporarily scrambling electronic visors and targeting systems, Nexus moved like liquid death, his hunting skills turned to their defense. Each shot was precise, disabling rather than killing when possible. Marcus appreciated the restraint dead security officers would make them terrorists in truth, not just propaganda. "Transmission at 30%, Zafira called out, her hands flying over the equipment even as she ducked incoming fire. The battle raged for an hour, neither side able to gain decisive advantage. Then everything changed. A new ship appeared. On the station's approach, vectors not human, not Coluvian, but a rare mediator vessel from the neutral convergence. The insectoid species never involved themselves in bilateral disputes unless the stability of trade routes was threatened. Attention Meridian 7. The translated message boomed through all channels. The convergence has detected significant diplomatic irregularities. We are implementing neutral zone protocols. All combat will cease immediately. Reeves's voice crackled over security channels, desperate and angry. This is an internal human matter. You have no jurisdiction. Incorrect. The mediator responded with mechanical certainty. Evidence of conspiracy affecting multiple species has been received and verified. Stand down or face convergence intervention. The firefight stuttered to a halt. Through the smoke and debris, Marcus saw Reeves himself approaching no longer. The polished diplomat, but a desperate man watching his carefully constructed conspiracy crumble. "You don't understand what you've done," Reeves snarled at them. "The balance we maintained, the controlled conflicts that prevented real war. Without us managing tensions, both species would have destroyed each other." "You mean without you?" "Profiting from managed massacres," Zafira countered, standing despite exhaustion. "Peace through murder isn't peace, it's just delayed genocide." The mediator ship dispatched investigation pods, their neutral status allowing them to access both human and Coluvian records that neither side could legally examine about the other. Within hours, the scope of the conspiracy began to emerge. Shadow organization, spanning both governments, maintaining power through orchestrated tragedies. 3 weeks later, the grounds reopened to a line that stretched around the market corridor. Marcus worked the espresso machine with renewed energy, while Zafira handled the register with a grace that had nothing to do with her diplomatic training, and everything to do with finding her place. The trials were ongoing. Reeves and 17 other conspirators from both species faced justice under convergence oversight. The revelation had shaken both governments, forcing transparency that should have existed from the beginning. It wasn't perfect peace, but it was honest tension, which somehow felt healthier than manufactured conflict. "Order for table 6, Zafira," called out, her voice carrying that crystalline tone that had become part of the cafe's atmosphere. Customers barely noticed her alien features. Annie Morche was just the woman who remembered everyone's name and made the best Coluvian human fusion drinks on the station. Nexus occupied his usual corner table, having traded his hunter's reputation. For a position as the station's new head of integrated security, he claimed the career change was logical. But Marcus noticed how he always positioned himself to watch the cafe's entrances, a self-appointed guardian to the place that had changed all their trajectories. "You know," Captain Morrison said, accepting her coffee from Marcus personally, "this place has become something of a legend, the cafe where peace was served." "We just make coffee," Marcus replied with practiced modesty, but his prosthetic hand bore a new addition, a small pin jointly awarded by both governments for service to interspecies relations. He'd wanted to refuse it, but Zafira had convinced him that symbols mattered, even small ones. Morrison left to return to her ship, and the lunch rush gradually eased. In the relative quiet, Zafira moved beside Marcus, their movements synchronized. From weeks of working in close quarters, she'd started sleeping in his quarters rather than the storage room 2 weeks ago. Development neither had discussed, but both had accepted as natural as breathing. "Chen sent a message," she said quietly. The new trade agreements passed. Full cultural exchange programs, integrated colonial development, shared technology initiatives. Everything the conspirators tried to prevent, because conflict was more profitable than cooperation, Marcus nodded, already knowing but appreciating her need to voice it. "Fear always sells better than hope." "Not here," she said, gesturing to the cafe full of humans and Coluvians. Sharing tables and conversations that would have been impossible months ago, here hope comes with free refills. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor, a young human woman with a military bearing despite civilian clothes. She approached the counter hesitantly, clutching a worn photograph. "Mr. Webb, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chen's daughter. 8. My mother was stationed at Kepler when..." She trailed off, unable to finish. Marcus set down his cleaning cloth, giving her his full attention. "I knew Sarah. She was a good engineer, better person. I know what really happened now. Because of what you did, what you revealed. I needed to thank someone, and you're the only one I could find." Zafira appeared with a cup of chamomile with honey, somehow knowing exactly what the young woman needed. "Your mother's death wasn't meaningless," she said gently. "It was stolen meaning, but we stole it back. Her sacrifice now stands for truth, not lies." The young woman cried then, quietly but without shame. In a coffee shop where human and alien hands offered napkins with equal compassion, as the day wound down and they prepared to close, Nexus helped them stack chairs, a ritual he'd joined. Without asking, understanding that some bonds transcended species or circumstance. "The Convergence wants to establish permanent oversight," he mentioned casually. "They're looking for a neutral location for the mediation office." "Let me guess," Marcus said dryly. "They want to put it right next to the coffee shop that started everything." "Above it, actually," Nexus admitted with what passed for a Colluvian smirk. "They're offering to buy the whole building, with you retaining permanent tenancy and operational control of the grounds." Zafira and Marcus exchanged glances. The offer would mean security, legitimacy, and a permanent role in the peace process. It would also mean their small cafe would become a symbol whether they wanted it or not. "We'll think about it," Marcus said finally, but Zafira's hand found his warm, alien. Perfect hand he knew they'd already decided that night. In the quiet of Marcus's quarters, they sat by the viewport watching ships dock and depart. Human vessels, Colluvian crafts, and now Convergence ships, all sharing space that had been segregated. By suspicion just months before. "Do you miss it?" Zafira asked. "The simplicity of just making coffee?" Marcus pulled her closer, his prosthetic arm around her shoulders. Never was just about coffee. It was about creating a place where people could just be people regardless of what planet they came from. And now we've got a bigger machine, more customers, and the fate of interspecies relations depending on our house blend. He kissed the top of her head, marveling at how her hair smelled like cinnamon and stardust. "So, business as usual, just with higher stakes." She laughed. That crystalline sound that had first drawn him to look past her desperate circumstances to see the remarkable being beneath. "Marcus Webb, you're either the wisest human I've met or the most foolish." "Por Q, no los dos," replied, in ancient Spanish, making her laugh again. Outside, station continued its rotation, carrying millions of lives through the cosmos. But at its heart, in a small cafe that served hope alongside espresso, two unlikely souls had proven that peace wasn't about grand treaties or political machinations. Sometimes peace was as simple as offering a warm cup to someone who needed it. Regardless of which star they were born under, the grounds would continue serving its unique blend of coffee and courage. A testament to the truth that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its capacity for war, but its ability to see potential friends where others saw only enemies. And in the steam rising from fresh brewed coffee, the future of two species continued to percolate, one cup at a time.